Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 31, Post-Structuralism and Postmodernism. And our topic is Foucault and the Archaeology of Knowledge. Foucault described his approach or methodology as the archaeology of knowledge. Using this approach, Foucault studied knowledge and discourse. According to Foucault, this approach provides better ingress to understanding society, and it's different from history. What he feels is portrayed in a stereotyped linear progression, whereas the reality remains limited and continuous. Foucault, however, moved away from this structural type of analysis and began studying the genealogy of power. His concern was to find out the facts about the governance through knowledge production. The nature of knowledge as power should not be hierarchical, and also that the higher the knowledge, the greater the power it wields over the subjects. Thus Foucault studied technique and process in science, since this is what exerts power over people through the medium of institutions. This is not to say that the elites are scheming and manipulating power. Again, Foucault uses a non-linear perception of progress in societies from the stage of barbarism to the present civilization. Thus, history is seen instead as shifting patterns of domination. However, knowledge or power is such that it is always opposed and resisted. Thus, Foucault's post-structural view is that while knowledge or power are ubiquitous, they are certainly not omnipotent and total in their domination, but their power or authority is always questioned and opposed. A brief introduction to Foucault's ideas would help us in completing the section on post-structuralism. Thus, according to Foucault, the mad have been misunderstood and mistreated over the course of history and thus subjected to moral control. Power or knowledge are implicative of each other. Technologies exert power. For example, the panopticon is a prison with the cells around a large observation tower, from which everything that inmates do is visible and observable. Such an institution is metamorphic of total societal control of the prisoners, since it forces even the prisoners or inmates to exercise self-restraint. Thus, this is a direct relationship between the technology, knowledge, and power. Thus, the panopticon is a prototype of societal control and surveillance, and the forerunners of intelligence services and satellite observations over geophysical territories. Postmodernism is not the term for a single type of theory, meta-narrative or grand theory. It is rather the term for an overall approach involving many similar strands. There is thus no single position in postmodernism, but all the thinkers in the approach share certain common features that separate it from modernism. This has been both a feature that separates it from modernism, and the approaches all indicate that what they are doing is to present, dissect, construct ideas that will be relevant to the post-modern context. A large number of sociologists still tend to think that post-modernism is a passing fancy. However, it is now obvious that post-modernism cannot be ignored both as fact and phenomena. However, it cannot be denied that post-modernism is surrounded by diverse positions within the field itself. It would be proper at this point to distinguish between some common terms that are often confused with each other, although they are quite distinct from one another. Thus, post-modernity is the word used for the historical epoch following the modern era. Further, post-modernism itself refers to the cultural products which are different or separate from the modern cultural products in art, architect, etc. Again, post-modern social theory refers to a method of ideating that differs from the modern social theory. From the above, it can be said that the post-modern covers a new epoch, new cultural products, new theories about society. Further, these new realities are getting strengthened, and there is a widespread feeling that the modern era is ending and being superseded by another epoch. This was evident in breaking up of buildings which were modern and complete. However, the post-modern theories themselves provide reality-made solutions in a general sense. However, it is questionable whether the birth of the post-modern era can be precisely dated, though it appears to have transited from the modern in the 1960s. Post-modernism indicates that in the cultural field, post-modern cultural products tend to replace modern products. Again, post-modern social theory has emerged from and has differences with modern social theory. Thus, post-modern theory rejects the notion of foundationalism of the earlier theories, but itself tends to be relative, non-relational, and nihilistic. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning Podcast.